Hello, Nick. I am so excited to chat with you today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Sarah.
Yeah. So I would love for you, as we get this conversation started, people are probably wondering, how in the world do we know each other?
Yeah. So, you're my academic advisor and through athletics at Penn State. My first couple of years here, actually, and you're awesome.
Oh,
So, and we miss you here. So, we have
oh,
great academic advisors, but I just miss you, Sarah. So,
oh, that's so kind of you. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. And so we actually met before you even came on camp, like before you even started school.
yeah, that's correct. So I actually came out a year early, my senior year, and it's a very like whenever I try to explain it to people, people get confused. But I finished my senior year of high school online, and then I came out and I was talking to you about school, and I forget some of the specifics, but we wanted to make sure that I was ready to go
Mhm.
coming into college for classes and all that stuff. So we were in contact with you very early on.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for like listeners to hear is that, the NCAA rules and regulations are always changing. And so
Yeah.
if you have somebody who can guide you through that and just ensure that like you as a student athlete or as your parents are like helping you through that too, that your parents know exactly what's going on because
Yeah.
those NCAA rules are so vast too.
It feels like it's like a maze that I still haven't gotten out of, and I'm lucky that I have people whose job it is to navigate that, and even my parents were pretty confused, so it's nice to have people that can navigate that, because it is like I still don't know like why I took certain classes or why I took certain classes when I did, and but I think I did it the right way. So
Oh, I think you totally did it the right way because you have like an amazing opportunity that's happening this coming
yeah,
academic year.
yes, that is correct. That's correct. Yeah. So I'm looking at a couple different things, but so I graduated with an undergraduate degree in health policy and administration. And I think whenever you left, Sarah, I was still kinesiology, and
Mhm.
I ended up switching. I was like, I don't know if these biology classes are really for me.
That's right. Yeah.
so, so I ended up switching into health policy and administration, which is was still kind of health and human development, but more business focused, I guess, things that I was more interested in. And I graduated with that degree this past spring. And coming up this next year, we have another year of eligibility due to COVID, which I think is confusing a lot of people.
Mhm.
But pretty much last year was kind of, it didn't count against your eligibility, so everyone can come back. And I'm taking that extra year of
Yeah.
eligibility, and I'm actually re-enrolling. I was gonna do a graduate degree
Mhm.
as a master's in management organizational leadership, but I ended up changing my mind because I'm thinking about going to law school, actually. So I'm gonna be studying for the LSAT over the course of a year, but I'm re-enrolling as an undergrad and another undergraduate degree in political science.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get to keep learning. So
Oh,
and I actually have been really interested in that for a long time. Um, but I think a lot of young athletes or young students in general come into college with, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to
mhm.
be a doctor, or, I'm going to be a lawyer, and then you quickly find out, once you take some gen eds and some other classes, you're like, okay, I'm not actually interested in this. I want to switch it up. So I'm excited because I think I have kind of figured out my niche, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's really cool.
Which I think not even just student athletes, but all athletes or all
Yeah,
students who go through that process. I mean, like I told you guys, I think I changed my major 4 times, like when I was in
yeah,
undergrad, because I didn't know, and
yeah,
I didn't really even know until I got into graduate school, like where I wanted to land.
yeah. And I don't know if you can do that these days, but I was kind of stressed out about changing my major. I was like, oh, this is a big deal. And then my grandma was like, don't worry, I changed my major 11 times. And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, I don't know if you can do that these days, Grandma, but that does make me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. It is something like nowadays, and I'm dating myself, where things have certainly changed
Yeah,
as far as like changing your major. And I think that's what's so important is to have these people. And a lot of student athletes don't know, but like you guys have academic advisors on campus who
but
really
yeah,
help like walk you through that. But not only just like an academic advisor in your college, but you actually have like an athletic academic advisor that's supporting
that's
you through the
correct.
whole entire way.
That's correct. There's just the resources, if you need them, are there.
Mhm.
And, especially at Penn State, which I'm very thankful for. And, a lot of times it's just knowing that those resources are there and taking advantage of them.
And I think like that's the biggest key is actually taking advantage of them. A lot of
Sending an
students,
email,
that's oh,
sending an email.
oh, that's so huge. It's like all you have to do is send an email or like walk into somebody's office and like those, I mean, those resources are there for you, but you have to take ownership in utilizing them.
Yeah, correct. And that's always something, I had trouble with that when I was, a freshman. And, as I get older, I learn, and then I have to, talk to our freshmen like, hey, all I have to do is send an email to this person. They'll help you out. They'll, take care of everything you need. And it's like the constant battle. So, if you are, have the presence of mind to take advantage of that stuff early, it's like it can really make your life a lot easier.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And I think what's so important is, and I said this multiple times, is you guys probably get tired of me saying this, but if you take care of everything outside of your athletic arena, like when you walk into practice or the weight room, like you're 100% present.
Yes, that's correct.
And so
That's
you're
correct. Yeah,
not,
it's not helpful to be stressing about a test or an email that I was supposed to send, or homework that I didn't turn in. That is not helpful on the wrestling mat or on the football field, wherever you are. It's that really people discount, I think, how much that can affect you sometimes.
and I think it's so, because I mean, you have to think about like the moment that you're in, whether you're on the wrestling mat or any court field, whatever that looks like, you have to be 100% there. Because if you're there,
Mhm.
you're able to train to the best of your ability. You're able to prevent injuries because you're
Yeah,
thinking about what you need to do in that moment.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's one thing that we've kind of noticed is our guys who are um, you know keep keep up with school and are doing their homework, they're actually performing better
Mhm.
on the wrestling mat as well, just because they have everything taken care of. They do have the presence of mind. They're present in the moment. They're not thinking about things outside of the competition. So that's one thing that we found. And yeah, you're right. We didn't get tired of you, but you were always in our ear about it, and we're thankful for that.
Oh, yes. And many of text and emails. It's just little small reminders. It always helps people stay on track.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your athletic journey over the
Yeah,
last 4 years. It's not been easy.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy because we say 4 years, but I mean, it's been like, I feel like I started at Penn State forever ago. I mean,
Yeah.
what was it? Came in 2016, I think, and it's 2021 now, so it's been a while. And so I committed to Penn State as a junior in high
Mhm.
school, which is at the time pretty early.
Yep.
People are committing earlier and earlier now, and that's just a whole nother you know discussion. But I committed as a junior, and um, then I actually moved out whenever I was a senior, and I finished school online and trained with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club,
Mhm.
uh, which is disconnected from Penn State in the sense that it's a separate organization.
Yep.
So it's all legal and everything. And I pretty much I didn't compete that much. I did a few small competitions here and there where I could, but generally I just kind of trained and then finished up my high school classes for a year.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting experience and super unique at the time. I think more people have done that kind of thing now that I've been through the system. But I think at the time that I did it, there weren't a lot of people doing that. I may have been one of the first
Mhm.
to kind of do that, which was really interesting. And it's a little bit of a sacrifice, I think, but I think you sacrifice some things for the things that you want. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. And then the next year I enrolled with Penn State, and I was on the wrestling team. And college athletics is like, especially at some of the bigger schools, it's like it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. It's a very it can be a stressful environment if you're not managing it correctly, and you feel like you're a pro athlete almost. So it's and a lot of people are pro athletes very soon after they're college athletes, so it has to prepare you well. And I didn't. So for the first semester of my freshman year, I wasn't starting, and we had a guy who was there. He's in the spot. He'd been there for a few years. He's pretty good. And so I was just and I hadn't really done much college competitions. And so I think for that first semester, I was just let's see how you do, get into some, college opens, and, see how your athletic performance, lines up with your academic performance, and let's see what happens. And, I did well enough, and we went to a big tournament called the Southern Scuffle. And when is that? That's
in January.
Yeah, like January 1st. And then the guy who was starting, he had a little injury, and we had wrestle offs and stuff, and they're like, all right, Nick, you're going, on the next duel. And that was in Michigan, and I was super nervous. But we go to Michigan, and Michigan's actually that's a really fun place to compete. They have a lot of good energy, and it was my first college match, but not really, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But I went out there. It was my first match. I was nervous. I got really tired, and I was like, I didn't do that well. And my coaches who have been there for years were like, yeah, you did as well as we thought you would. Just like happens to everyone in their first match. You get a little tired, and so your typical freshman stuff. And I did pretty well. But then my first match came 2 weekends later. I think my first college match that made an impact on me, and that's in Rec Hall.
Yeah.
Right, because Rec Hall is that's for those who are listening that don't know what that is. That's the home gym for Penn State wrestling and Penn State volleyball. And so that was my first college match that really made an impact on me. It was against Purdue, and Rec Hall is something else. I mean, the energy is incredible, and that was really awesome. And that's kind of when it sinks in, and I think it's when it sinks in for most new wrestlers at Penn State, and it's like, okay, I really like this, and I want to keep doing this for as long as possible, and I want to win a national championship, and all of that. And so that's when I really started to have a lot of fun. And then so we kind of went through my freshman season. I did only the conference dual season, the conference tournament, and then the national tournament. And my first national tournament was interesting, right? Because you get to your first, we say that's the most fun tournament in the world, right? The national tournament, which I believe it is too. And so my freshman year, I think I was going in as like a 12 seed maybe. And, I had a guy that I had wrestled, earlier, and I ended up losing. I got pinned in my first match, and I was like, oh my gosh. And we were, in close competition with Ohio State that year for the national tournament. And so, I remember losing my first match, and I'm like, I just blew this for our whole team. Like we're going to lose. And so, but I ended up, wrestling on the backside of the bracket, which, for the wrestlers that are listening to your podcast, that's where national championships are won, is on the backside of the bracket. Right. So I ended up wrestling all the way back to 5th place, which was, I've never been that sore in my life.
That's crazy.
I don't think I'll ever be that sore again. It was a lot of competition.
Because there in that arena for that weekend, what did you have? It was like 7 or 10 matches.
It was 8 matches.
8 matches.
And if you look at the bracket and kind of go through it in your head, you can't do more than 8 matches.
Yeah.
Right. So 8 matches is the
you maxed out.
You can get in that tournament. Yeah. So I maxed out, and I don't want to do that again though.
No.
I was glad for the experience, but I don't want to do that again. And so that was kind of my first, taste of a college season. And it was a lot. And,
Yeah.
your first season goes by and you're that was so long. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get through 4 years and you're like, holy cow, where did time go?
Yeah. Where did the
So
time go? Yeah. I feel like we say that every
yeah,
year.
we say that every year. It flew by. But sophomore year, that's actually, thinking about it, my sophomore year is the only full regular season I've wrestled in, which is interesting to think about. But so sophomore year was your regular year. I definitely, that's kind of a hard year that people overlook sometimes, because you're coming off freshman year. Things are, they're tough, but you're more regimented. Sure. Sophomore year, you have a little bit more freedom. Maybe the classes are a little bit harder. And so that's kind of a rough year sometimes that people don't really think about. Right. You just have a lot going on. You're starting to take on more responsibility for yourself. You've probably moved out of the dorms.
Yep.
So, and that was a good year. It was still a good year for me. I wrestled well. I placed 5th again, which, wasn't an improvement. So, I was a little disappointed there. But, I think that, for me, I improved in other areas of my life. I figured out a major that I wanted to be in, what I wanted to do. So that's important. And just took on some more responsibility in my life, which is really important. So, the sophomore year was important for me. And then junior year, moving on, was really interesting. I mean, regular year until nationals, and then we all know what happened in 2020. The COVID happened, right? So we didn't have the nationals, but up until then, I was having, a pretty darn good year, and definitely some of the best wrestling that I've done, and academically still going well. But
and I think too, if I recall, in 2020, you were actually going into the national tournament as like a 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, so there was one other wrestler from Ohio State, and he was 1 for most of the year, and I beat him in the duel, and then I was 1 for a bit, and then Big Ten tournament, he got me. So we were 1-1 going to the national tournament, highly anticipated, and then, it just never happened.
So how, if you think about that, going in now to your senior year last year, what was your mindset heading into that?
Heading into my senior year after the COVID year, gosh, well, your perspective definitely changes, right? And so that's something that is, I've kind of been thinking about a lot lately with some of our guys on our team. But for me, my perspective is, man, I'm just grateful we have the opportunity, right? Because you never know, it could get stripped away like that, So it's definitely more grateful, and I think it puts things into perspective. Why am I here? I'm here because I enjoy it, right? If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be doing it.
And I think that's such a great perspective to have. And as you look back on it, saying the gratitude, and I know something, just having worked with you guys, having worked with the team, gratitude is such a big component of what you do on an everyday basis. So even thinking at the end of the day, if you've had a bad day or a bad practice or a bad match, you always want to still come back and say, what am I grateful for that happened?
Yeah, that's a really healthy mindset. And, one thing that our coach would say is it's whenever you perform surgery in a room, they create a constant flow of air, right? You're not letting any bad air get in. It's a constant flow of, good air, clean air. And so our minds have to be the same way. It has to be a constant flow of, positive thoughts. Yep. Whenever you have a negative thought, that needs to be sent out immediately and replaced with a positive thought.
That's right.
So that's one, being grateful, and whenever you go to bed at night saying, what am I grateful for today? That's one good way to continue the flow of positive thoughts through your head, right? Because your body it doesn't know the difference between a fake thought and a real thought. It's just going to manifest whatever you're thinking. So
yeah. And that's so true. And I think if you can start that for our students who are listening, who are maybe still in high school or even still in college, it's such a great practice to start now, wherever you are, if you haven't been doing it, because it's truly going to help you stay in that positive mindset when you get up against all these major hurdles that come. And I mean, and you've had a lot of hurdles, but
Yeah.
you had a really major win your senior year.
Yeah. So, coming off no national championships my junior year, coming to senior year, pretty much half the season wasn't there. And then, it was just pretty much the conference dual season, kind of like it was my freshman year. And then right into the Big Ten tournament, national tournament. And that was, there's definitely a difference in my, mentality in my senior year. Definitely, it's easy to say, I'm going to be grateful and have a positive mindset. But once you actually can implement it right, then you really understand kind of what it means and, why it's important. And I think, that's something that you should expect to, fail along the way, even especially in your mindset. You have to try out different things. For me, right. Would try to think a certain way and it doesn't work for me, kind of like you're trying, different moves in wrestling or in any sport. If you try things out and if it works, you keep it. If it doesn't work, you move on to something else. So it was definitely a process, but just kind of going into my senior year, being grateful for the opportunity and knowing that there's always a possibility you're going to lose, but then you kind of, once you accept that, it's like, but I really do want to win, so I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna find a way to win. So that was a lot of fun, and especially just given the stressful year that we've had, and it was more fun maybe than even a regular year. So
yeah. Well, and I will also have to say, like, you gave me a small heart attack during that national championship match as
probably
I'm watching.
People had some heart attacks. So
yeah, because I mean, it wasn't like you just went out and won it hands down.
Yeah, it was overtime.
Right.
It was overtime. It was back and forth. And, actually for us, we had 4 guys in the finals and 3 of them went into overtime. And the 4th one didn't go into overtime, but it went down to the last second. And, I think that's testament to our program. It's not an accident. You win, 3 out of 4 finals matches in overtime, but you're still winning 4 out of 4 finals matches, right? So that's really cool. And definitely, one of a kind experience, but I think a lot of guys are going to experience it here in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's just so cool because of those 4 individual national champions, like you are one of them. Like you can officially say, like, I'm an NCAA national champion, which for 4 years, that was your goal. And every single year, something happened where like that just didn't go your way.
Yeah. And, you kind of, that's really a test, right? Because you get down to your senior year and it's like, man, I haven't done it yet. This is like my last chance. What's going to happen? And so I think you kind of have to, look at the goals that you have. And sometimes you have to look under those goals because, let's say I hadn't won and then, I haven't won a national championship, where does that leave me if that's my goal? For a lot of people, it's like, well, I failed, but you got to look at it in a positive way, right? And in the process of training to be a national championship, what happened? I became, a resilient person, and I improved a lot of aspects of my character, and my body is very healthy, right? So you got to look at the positive things and look at the successes, but yeah, there's only one national champion, right? So, I encourage people to, make sure you're placing out other goals along the way as well. You're going to achieve your goal, if you're completely committed. But, my other goals are, have to do with character and then academics, right? So, it's important to kind of, look underneath just national champion or state champion. You got to look underneath that, right? Because those other goals are what, they're stepping stones to big goals, but then, they're also what is going to stick with you for the rest of your life. So.
Yeah. And that's so true when you think about like what's underneath, like, because we've had this conversation a number of times. It's like wrestling is going to end at some point.
Yes.
And like, so what is that end result when it is all said and done? Now, your wrestling story is not all said and done, but then, but then again, you had like, you went in this summer to like, try to make the US Olympic team.
Yeah. Yes.
And
It went well.
yeah, I would say
Pretty well. I think
yeah, I'd say
better
it
than
went
I
pretty well.
thought. Better than I thought. I mean, I ended up getting third at the trials, which, places me on the national team, which, is pretty cool. And, I think that was important for me just to kind of, see, what's my career going to look like over, the next couple of years after college wrestling. Right. And so I think that was important for me to be like, okay, I can keep doing this for a while,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun too. And that was 2 weeks after national championship.
Right.
So, like right into it, it never stops, which, that also puts it in perspective, and it never really stops. So
yeah, I mean, it never really stops. And I think that goes back to how you were talking about having that resiliency. And like, sometimes we talk about it as grit and like, what does
yeah,
that look like? Because you're going to have these setbacks, you're going to have a lot of major wins. But in the end, is how do you continue to push through and build that personal endurance?
yeah, grit, and grit is a good word for it. And I think that, whenever you think of, people at a national tournament or their performance in a particular game or in a particular series of games, it's not necessarily, whether you win or lost. People kind of, they think about, how you competed. That's what people remember, right? So, my freshman year will always stick with me because, I think I competed with, a lot of grit and resilience. I got fifth, but I lost my first match, wrestled all the way back, and, ended up helping the team win a national championship, which, for me, that's a very valuable experience. And while I didn't achieve my goal, you kind of find out some other things about yourself that maybe you didn't know before.
That's exactly right. And I love that so much because, you are learning about yourself, not only as an athlete, but as a person, as you're
Yeah.
going through all of these tough endeavors of just like, I want to take it to the next level. I want to do this. But each step of the way, you have to step back and say, okay, what was my learning from this? What can I
Yeah.
actually take away from this moment?
Yeah. And I think you also kind of, learn what you want, because I think, there's athletes or, people who are athletes and, maybe they come into it and their heart's not totally in it. And then, they go do something else. And then there's people who, decided maybe it was going to be too hard to be an athlete. And then they graduate college and like, oh, I regret, not trying. Right. So I think it's important to, push your limits and get out of your comfort zone. And that's when you kind of learn, about yourself and, what you're interested in. And, I perfect example for me is whenever I switched my major, like, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then I had 2 biology classes and I was like, okay, this is not for me. I'm out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that you have to really take it. And it's also important to think about the people around you. Because when you take this inventory of yourself, you have such a great community that supports you through this whole thing, whether it's people on the academic side, whether it's your coaches, whether it's your teammates, whether it's your family. There's so many different aspects of this that are really going to help you as you move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was very blessed. I had a really supporting family. Penn State's, my coaching staff in particular is, amazing. And then, our support system, which Sarah, you were a part of, is like unmatched. So, I'm very, lucky and grateful for that. And I think, I don't want to like dehumanize it, but you got to look at all those people as resources and, their resources and ingredients and, your goals, right? And you got to throw them in that, pot because they're all have something to add and to help you out and to really just make your life easier on your way to achieve your goal. And so, once again, we'll just encourage people to, you don't have to do things by yourself, right? You can ask questions, even if you think they're dumb questions. These other people wish you would ask them because they probably know that you're going to make the wrong decision because you haven't been coached up in, a particular area. So just ask the questions, use the resources. It's, I wish I had more whenever I was, younger in college. And I continue to tell our young guys to, use your resources.
Yeah,
send the email.
Send the email. That's all you have to do is send the email. Okay. So the podcast is called Confessions from the Sidelines.
Yes.
I want to know, what is your favorite memory from standing on the sidelines?
So I think we might be thinking about the same thing. But so this goes back to my freshman year actually. And so I had finished up my wrestling. And I had warmed up, some guys, because the way they do it in wrestling at the national championships is they do the finals kind of later. And we had, how many guys we have in the finals? I think 4, maybe 5, maybe in the finals. I don't know. We had a bunch of guys in the finals. And I'm just kind of, I had finished up, I had warmed some guys up. And so I'm just sitting in our locker room with our strength coach, Coach Mike. And, like I mentioned earlier, it was very close to Ohio State. And it ended up coming down to last match. Mm-hmm. And it was Penn State versus Ohio State. And our wrestler's name was Bo Nickel. And so the winner of the match wins the national championship, right? So there's a lot on the line here. And I remember like my strength coach being like, hey, like, does Bo know that if he wins the match, we win? And I'm like, I'm sure he does. And I'm sure he's very stressed out. And then it was within the first like several seconds, Bo like goes to his back. I'm like, we both just kind of put our heads down. And then he flipped it, put the other guy on his back. We jump up, they call a pin, and just like lost control. I mean,
it just goes wild.
I had no dignity. Like I was just screaming. That was wild. And I still am kind of, get goosebumps from it today, but that is one of the coolest moments in like sports history. Mm-hmm. People should look that up, and just, people see the match and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But just, seeing, like, knowing what was on the line in that mm-hmm. match makes it even more incredible. So that was, for me, being on the sidelines, that was the coolest thing that I've ever experienced. I don't know if I'll experience something like that again, but I don't need to. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. There's no doubt about that. It was an incredible memory that I still think about and remember as well. So, okay. So Nick, where can people find you if they want to support you and cheer you on?
Yeah. So I'm still, I'm like an old man. I'm still figuring out social media. But you can find me on Instagram at @NickLee_PSU, and then on Twitter it's just @NickLee. And then we're at full capacity at Penn State this next year, so check it out, Big Ten Network. It's gonna be awesome. So I'm super excited.
Oh, that's going to be so amazing. And I'll make sure to include those social media handles in the show notes. And so you can go there and follow Nick along and cheer him on as he continues his next wrestling season.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nick.